Good to see you. It's been some good talks today. I hope I can keep your interest for the next 20, 30 minutes while we talk about bulk wine shipping rather than really anything about the wine itself. If I can, I'm going to put this down. There it goes. Okay. So last year we talked a little bit about navigating the bulk wine shipping environment, and this year I want to talk to you about sustainable solutions for shipping Flexitanks. There's no question that shipping wine in bulk is the most effective way, both economically and environmentally, to get your wine from source to bottling. What we've got here is a chart which effectively shows 5 different modes of transport for wine coming into international. This model is specifically related to shipment lane from Chile to UK. We've taken a 20-foot reefer, 20-foot insulated, 20-foot dry container versus bulk options of both an ISO tank and a Flexitank. And as you can see here, what the readout is the oh, that's the whole thing. Okay, this isn't per liter. So this is basically your entire container, the amount of CO2 emissions, 4,200 kilograms of CO2 in a Flexitank. This is wrong. So, oops, went too far. Okay. So part of the effectiveness of shipping bulk wine, the environmental and the economic effectiveness is because of the volume you get to fit into the 20-foot container. While it does secure an efficient mode of transport, there are some challenges because your typical Flexitank import shipment, after discharged, you're going to have some waste. You're going to have a Flexitank. You're going to have bulkhead. You're going to have lining material. So this is kind of counterproductive to what we look for in today's environmentally conscious landscape. And what we try to figure out is how can we reconcile that? While we're shipping effectively on the ocean and on land, we are now generating waste, which we won't want to do. So the solution to this is the circular economy and finding a circular economy in a traditionally linear business model. Oops, one too far. Okay, so what do we mean by circular economy versus a linear economy? Linear economy is the old traditional model, especially within the Flexitank environment, of create, use, and dispose. Manufacture the tank, ship it, get rid of it when you're done. Circular economy, you want to seek to take that last step, and instead of disposing of your material, you want to reuse, recycle, recover, reduce, anything you can do with the re words, right? Slow. Okay. So, in the traditional model of Flexitanks, what are our options? What can we do? You ship the Flexitank, as I said, you've got the material you need to do something with. Traditionally, you have 2 options, landfill or incineration. This, of course, is not a sustainable solution because it can release toxins into the soil where landfill is concerned, toxins into the atmosphere where incineration is concerned. And you also have a developing landscape of landfill usage being limited. Certain materials are not welcome in landfills where they used to be. And more regulation is being put in place to try to control this and make it more of the norm. So what do we look for in our circular economy with these Flexitanks? As I said, recover, reduce, refurbish, reuse, recycle. Anything we can do in there to do that. Now for us at JF Hillebrand, for many years we've been refurbishing and reusing bulkheads. And this is a positive for the environment. We're not dumping big steel frame bulkheads into landfills, not cluttering up different areas. But we need to step further. So we look at new ways to do this. With recovery and reuse in the bulkheads, as I mentioned, refurbishing as well when those aren't sound for shipping any longer. They can be refurbished, reused. And then finally with the tanks themselves, we've got about 200 pounds of material here in the Flexitank. It's either a combination of polyethylene and polypropylene, or maybe it's a 100% polyethylene material. Polyethylene can be recycled in many fashions, and we'll talk about what some of those options are here in just a moment. Polypropylene itself cannot necessarily be recycled in the traditional sense, so we need to find other solutions for that in order to maintain this circular economy. So the challenges we face and building this circular economy starts from the very beginning. Starts with the design and the build and the manufacture of the Flexitank. I mentioned here before about the materials used, how those can and can't be dealt with after use, after the Flexitank has been used. So that's something to take into consideration. Will your tank have pure polyethylene? Will it be a multi-layer tank? Will it use thicker film, thinner film? Will you use polypropylene in that tank? All of these speak to the environmental impact that that tank will have once it's been spent. Finding the right way to repurpose that polyethylene is also a consideration in the environmental impact of your circular economy. Now, where compliance is concerned, I touched on this, but we do see globally compliance coming in. Many countries are now not accepting plastics, used plastics, to be imported to their countries. You have areas like the European Union who are looking to have zero plastic landfills by 2025. So as we look to build this, we're faced with more and more challenges behind what is in the landscape, what is in the environment, and what is regulating how and what we can't do with these tanks. So now we get to the methods, the recycling methods that are available to, I guess, us as the Flexitank manager who's managing this through the transport. And we've got three main options. Mechanical recycling is a style of upcycling. Upcycling means that it's going to move it into new products. The mechanical recycling requires granulating, extruding, and pelletizing the material. So we take the 24,000 liter tank, turn it into small grains of polyethylene that can be reused to make new plastics, or well, generally used to make new plastics. That's part of the upcycling. It's always going to be used for new plastics. Chemical recycling is another option. With chemical recycling, we reduce the material down to its chemical components. Once that's done, we can then use that material, that chemical material, either for new plastics or to be used in fuel sources. The third method, which is not really considered a recycling, but is considered a effective and environmentally friendly method of dealing with this, is recovery through thermal recovery. Thermal recovery basically translates to energy from waste, or waste to energy, if you've ever heard those terms. And what we're doing is we're taking the plastics, the materials in the bag, through an incinerator to convert to heat, electricity, steam, or ash that's then used. So you're not getting any new materials out of this, you're not getting any new products out of it, but you're able to use that product for those purposes. So what are we doing? What is JF Hillebrand doing to try to further this need for circular economy, this need to have an environmentally friendly approach to shipping Flexitanks? So we began 2 years ago in the UK, which is one of our largest import regions, to collect every Flexitank that's imported. Today, we cover about 90% of those tanks that come into the UK are collected, recycled within Europe, and used to manufacture new products, either through, as we said, the mechanical or the chemical recycling process. So the plan is for 2020, by the end of this year, by next year, 100% of those tanks that are coming into the UK will be managed in this capacity and reintroduced into the market through new products. Further to that, we also target 2020 to implement the same program here in California. So hopefully within a year to 2 years, by the end of, say, 2021, maybe early 2022, we would be able to say the same for the U.S. 100% of the Transocean JF Hillebrand Flexitanks that are being brought into the U.S. would then be recycled back into the market. That's our target. With this comes the possibility for recycling. If your company has interest in displaying its, whether through regulatory or any capacity, displaying the impact that your company is making on the environment and how you're reducing your carbon footprint, we can further provide certificates, which we're currently doing in the UK. These can be collected and submitted as necessary, reported as necessary. This thing's a little slow. Sorry if I feel like I'm delaying things, but kind of that really comes to the end of what we're talking about and what we're trying to do at Transocean and at JF Hillebrand to make our service as environmentally friendly as possible. A few notes we put in here just on the ethics, the quality, and the accreditations that are required in order to facilitate this. We maintain. We maintain relationships with the Clean Cargo Group, FIVES, if anybody's familiar with that, and the United Nations Global Compact. Through those, we determine the initiatives we're going to take, one of these being the Flexitank initiative for recycling. We also maintain a plethora of, went too far now. Plethora of accreditations for both our manufacturing facilities, all ISO 9001 certified, where possible ISO 14001, which is the environmental standards. We hold these accreditations with USA and EU commissions on water control, water regulation, as well as Japan. And all of this is what we continually build within our system in order to facilitate our involvement in furthering this environmentally friendly approach to transporting your goods. I think this really covers everything. How do we deliver this performance globally? And it's based on our network and the attributes we have as a Flexitank provider through the materials we use, the processes we've always employed, and just the focus on where we're headed. Rather short talk, so if anybody's got any questions about that, please let me know. Scotcha.
What was the name of the UN you mentioned again?
The Global Compact, or the UN, hold on, there's two of these, the Global Compact and the the Clean Cargo, the BSR Working Group. This is a business initiative managed by the Businesses for Social Responsibility. And the other one there is the United Nations Global Compact, which is an agreement between companies and countries to affect our impact on the environment. And that's an evolving group as to what its goals and needs are. Yes.
Hey, Luke. So I think for companies like ours in this country using your company services, it's I think your pitches are very ethically, sustainably strong, and why that should be a choice for some of us. I get that. But do you see that value of the sustainable practices you have translating down the line, down the trade tier, down the retailer, down the customer? What value would, for the sustainable part of it, how does that value translate down, and what advantages would someone have in such a pricing-driven market?
Well, it's true, and there is a cost to responsibility. There's definitely is. As that translates down the line, as I mentioned, especially here in California, we have regulations and groups that require reporting, especially in farming industries like wine growing. We see this as an opportunity to complement that A lot of times when people talk about the grape growing and environmental sustainability, it has to do with what fertilizer are you putting in the ground, how often are you watering. There's a lot of that around farming, but not very often does it really come to the supply chain and how can we show that we're making improvements in our supply chain. And so that's what we've tried to do. This is just one of the initiatives we've done. We also have a carbon footprint calculator within our IT environment that can help you to determine what you're shipping, where to and from you're shipping, and what kind of impact that has. Part of the new tools we've put out, we've got a My Hillebrand app, which is a smartphone app that allows you to view your shipments, and at the same time, it shows your carbon footprint on that particular shipment and how much carbon per liter is burned on that. How that translates is into other pieces of the business. And while it may cost you more on the transportation side, you may get benefit from that in the other sides. And down the line, you may have partners who value that to a point of making that choice over, you have a sustainable partner, we like that, we're bought into that, and we want to participate in that as well.
Maybe I'm speaking out of ignorance. I would like to know what keeps us from washing those Flexitanks and using them multiple times, and if that is not feasible because of sanitation issues, is there anything that should be done technologically to improve either the material with which Flexitanks are made or the way they could be cleaned? Well,
the tank we make, and most everyone who makes Flexitanks are single-use tanks, and this is because this is polyethylene, the material that's being used. It's an odd analogy, but if you think about blowing up a balloon, this is kind of what you're doing. You're blowing up that balloon, filling it with water, filling it with wine, and then you're letting it out. So as you do that, you stretch that material to its safe zone. We actually have, these tanks are meant to be loaded within 500 liters plus or minus that nominal capacity. So that's a safe zone where at the high end, the polyethylene is stretched to its perfect tautness, so to speak. If you stretch that further, the material starts to separate. So if you were to blow up a balloon and continue to blow it up under its capacity, you start to see striation lines in that balloon. And what that is, that's the material getting thinner. One piece of material just stretches, and those lines are the edge of it. So effectively, that's what you're trying to avoid with these Flexitanks. That's why it's a single-use piece of equipment. Because as you fill that and then discharge it, the next time you try to fill that, the tensile strength of the material is not going to be as strong. So with each use, it would put that product a little more at risk, so to speak. The reusable alternative to the Flexitank is an ISO tank. Very similar model of transport and shipment, fairly similar costs involved with transport, except that with an ISO tank, you need to move that equipment around to where it needs to be loaded. Whereas with the Flexitank, we're using a 20-foot container from the shipping line, ISO container that anybody can use. So it's balancing, as we'd said before with the other side, it's balancing the fact of cost and effectiveness. A reusable Flexitank would then present new challenges similar to ISO tanks. So I've just loaded this in France, I've shipped it to the winery in California. Now, if I'm going to reuse it, now I need to gather that and bring it over here, and I need to figure out where's the next facility I'm going to reuse it at. And if we're going to be using different varietals of wine, there could be some contamination risk if it's not cleaned out. But typically, those are the reasons that it's always been a single-use piece of equipment, and it was designed as such. So your typical ISO tank, these are the steel containers. It's a steel 24,000 liter tube in a metal frame, same size as a 20-foot container. Generally, those aren't lined, it's just a steel tank, similar in concept to the tank truck that does your domestic move of bulk wine. Thank you.
No.